All right, it is Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. We're having a Finance Appropriation and Advisory Committee Joint Selectmen meeting. First order of business is to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business, we have a new member to the FAA. His name is Dennis Collette. And I want to thank you, Dennis, for joining us. We're kind of a short group, so we're very happy to have you on board. I'm sure this is going to be interesting to learn how.
It's a learning curve.
So what I'll do is I'll just give you a couple minutes. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know you already did this to the selectmen, but we'll.
Yeah, okay. I've lived in Dudley since I've been 10. I'm originally from Webster, so I moved a long way. I've been in accounting since too damn long ago, since 1966. I was retired right now to a degree. I still have a few accounts that I work with, small ones, and basically I saw on the board that you were looking for somebody for different departments, and I decided to try, and here I am. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Dennis.
And that board worked putting some of those positions on, so maybe we do it again too. So I think we still need a couple more members for FAA. So okay, so we're gonna have the acceptance. You have the minutes in front of you of our last meeting. Have you guys take a quick peek at those? It's right there. That was over the summertime, right? So, if anybody wants to move to accept those minutes? Have to read them.
I move to accept the minutes from our last meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
For a second.
Okay. Is there any changes to the minutes at all? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, so now we'll open up the public hearing regarding the fall town warrant. Do we have any other, that's the only business we have. Do you want to go through each one of these, or
Open it.
you have to open up the
Can I
selectmen's
get a
meeting?
copy of those?
It's a public hearing, we have to open it up, at 7:05. Okay. Mr. Chairman, could I
Sure.
just give you a quick summary of where we are right now?
Sure.
So the fall town meeting is on October 29th. And typically what we do is going into the fall town meeting, we act on budget matters that have been deferred from the spring town meeting. And there's a number of those, and then we look to fund, as you've gone through, capital requests and other budget requests. So if you look at the total amount of those requests, the budget transfers total $140,200, and the total of the warrant articles, excluding
That's
capital,
my stuff.
is $147,300, for a grand total of $287,500. What I typically do is, going into the meeting, I'll give you a prioritized, you and the selectmen, a list of priorities, because I need to sit down and meet with the departments and find out what they're looking for. In terms of funding sources, the usual source of funds is free cash, and we do have our free cash certified at $309,632. We also will take a look at our new growth and our local receipts, both of which we had a budget when we went into the Springtown meeting. For the new members, what we do is we set our budget in the spring, and then we have an opportunity to make changes and revisions to it in the fall, and then the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Assessors will set the tax rate in November. So leading into setting the tax rate, the numbers can be fluid. We can increase revenues and we can decrease revenues, and we can increase spending. So the intent of the fall town meeting is to give us one last opportunity to set our budget for this fiscal year. And then once we do so at town meeting, those are the numbers that get incorporated into the tax rate recap sheet and submitted for the tax rate approval in November. So, again, keep in mind that we have $309,632 in available funds, plus an amount to be determined in new growth and local receipts. I do want to say that it's wise to leave town meeting with unspent monies. And it would be wise in this instance to leave, I'd like to say between $50,000 and $75,000 in unspent money. People say, well, why do you need that? Because things will happen over the next 6 months, and we need to make sure that when we get to spring town meeting, we have a funding source available to be able to address those items. Last year, we left a very large amount of money unspent because we didn't know what was going to happen with the school override. So there was a significant, I think it was $300,000 left in unspent monies because we didn't know what was going to happen. And the concern was if the override didn't pass, the town would still have an obligation to fund its required minimum contribution for education. We don't have that situation this year, so I feel as though a smaller set aside is probably appropriate. That's it. Any questions on revenues?
I'm gonna grab my pen here, sorry.
And I do want to mention, Mr. Chairman, there was some comment earlier about, so the free cash is, again, $309,632. The water retained earnings is $1,017,227, and that will be used as a funding source for any water department requests that are on the warrant. The sewer retained earnings is $466,449, and we talked a little bit earlier about a camera for the sewer department. This would be the source of funds, $466,449. And we just found out on Friday these numbers, so the Department of Revenue just approved them.
Greg, is stabilization still 220, or is that?
It's a good question. I think so. I think so, Mike, and the question is, how much do we want to put toward it at this meeting?
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Mudd, how do you want to go through each warrant article here? And,
Yeah, let's go through the spending ones.
Okay. I think we can, do you want to go back to Article 3 at the end, or?
We can go through it while everyone's fresh and ready to go. Don't be intimidated by the thickness of the warrant. There's a couple major bylaw changes that are here, and they're non-financial issues.
So Article 3 is a request for $140,200. And there is an appendix on the back here.
Yep, the last page.
So is this a request out of free cash, Greg?
That's exactly how it would be handled.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would bring us right down.
I mean, my preference would be to either use it from local receipts or new growth, and the reason why I say that is because these are reoccurring expenses.
Right.
And free cash, as much as I like to think about it being a recurring cost, I prefer to save that for one-time expenses. So if we can squeeze any money out of the budget through raise and appropriate, that's what the funding source of these will be.
Raise and appropriate?
Yeah, so that will be, it'll either be, that's the preference, and at this time, we need to determine how much money might be available.
Okay. You want to go through each one of these, John?
Yeah, just
So
read 'em out.
80,000 veterans benefits, is that reoccurs?
Okay, so
That's the big one.
we budgeted 120,000 this year.
Yeah.
If you look historically what the town spends in veterans benefits, somewhere about 200 is a reasonable amount. We're also reimbursed 75 cents on the dollar from the Commonwealth for every dollar we spend toward veterans. So it looks like a lot of money, but in return, we get 75% of it back from the state.
And that also includes the extra additional time open in the
No.
office? No, that's a
No.
separate article?
That's in the merit pool, although my preference is probably to put it here.
Because that's recurring in my.
Yeah, my preference would be to add it to this list.
Agreed,
Okay.
agreed. Plus VSO.
Any questions? If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah. you-
Seven-
Thought of it.
7,000 to the, is that unpaid wages, or is it,
There we go.
what is that? 7,000 for the highway?
Yeah, so the next couple of items are all things that we knew we would have to fund. And at that time, at the time of the Springtown meeting, we had not settled our highway contract.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to add those monies after we have the contract settlement, and that's what this reflects.
Okay. Snow removal? Did I see something on snow removal?
So, Mr. Chairman, just to give you a little bit of information,
Yeah.
I've been committed to try to increase the amount by $5,000 each year. We've been successful in doing so. This year, we didn't do it. So this kind of honors the commitment that we want to continue to increase our snow and ice funding by $5,000 a year to build it up to what I consider to be a respectable amount of money.
So I have a, there was a letter in our packet from Deb. Something about not raising the snow and ice deficit.
Hang on, let me-
It's just,
What is it? Yeah, just,
Hang on. Hang on.
that's the same account.
Well, that's certainly good news. So what happens is, if we don't budget an adequate amount for snow and ice, we have two opportunities to kind of balance out the budget. So, let's say we have a deficit in the snow and ice account in the spring. What we will try to do is we'll try to fund that deficit by transfer of funds at the Springtown meeting, and that's what we did this year. If we can't do that, if either the deficit is too large or we haven't got a lot of money, we're able to kick that money over into the new fiscal year and then balance last year's snow budget on this year's budget. That's not something that I recommend, and it's not good fiscal practice.
Mr. Chairman, that's what happens like every year. It's the only account we can overspend,
Right.
obviously, but once you set it at a certain level, so
So we're upping it then,
Right.
5,000.
Right.
We're upping it because the goal is to have a lesser deficit going forward.
because the higher we raise it, that means we have to sort of spend it, that's what it's for, right?
Okay.
Say we have an 80-degree winter, the money's still there, right?
Right. It can't be spent on other
It can't be
things.
spent on other things, so that's why you only want to try to put what you need in
Do
there,
you know what's in that account now? I mean, she said
probably zero.
not half the raise.
No,
it,
we
but
we budget, I don't have the number in front
Oh,
of me.
from whatever, yeah.
We budget $60,000-$70,000 in snow and ice every single year. And most of that is spent right now when we buy materials. So before the snow even hits, most of our money is spent on materials alone.
Okay.
First one or two storms, it's gone.
All right, so we're up in that 5 then.
Yep.
Okay. All right, next one, 18.5, the legal services.
So, the board appointed new town council for this fiscal year. They went through a review process and hired a new attorney, which is, I won't say a new attorney is expensive, but it's one of those things you get what you pay for. And we're in capable hands. And if you look at what we anticipate our costs to be over the remainder of the fiscal year, this budget was underfunded. We were originally going to come back and ask for $15,000 at town meeting. I've increased it to $18,500 based upon what I anticipate as the rate. So just so you know, any costs attributable to the different projects, we will charge those legal fees against that project budget. So the fire chief was here earlier, and he mentioned about there was potential litigation involving one of the bids with the fire station project. We had counsel represent us before the Attorney General. Those costs don't hit this budget, those costs hit the fire
Hit the
department
fire
budget.
budget.
Similarly, if there are any costs for water and sewer, they would hit their budget and not our budget.
Just for color, we were so far below every other town that
Yeah.
has this, and just, everybody's aware the last couple of years, and a lot of, not just the public things that we've had, a lot of legal services both for, but also like just personnel things, it just, it eats it up pretty quick.
Okay.
This, and just rather than us winging it, having town council look at it, because there's things we might forget over time, and to do the best practice of something is.
Any questions on that? 10-7 to the police desk coverage.
So the next 1, 2, 3, 4 items were just amounts that weren't included in the budget. And they're just what I wouldn't consider to be routine costs attributable to the department. If obviously he doesn't get funding for these, then what he will need to do is curtail his spending in these categories so that he can balance out.
Chairman. Greg, so I just house cleaning here, housekeeping. So I see stuff for veterans, highway, police, legal. Is there any other recurring stuff for fire and EMS that we were in here?
No,
Okay.
no.
So I make sure everybody's covered.
There's some separate warrant articles.
Yes,
But
yes.
they're not items that were discussed in the budget going into the Springtown meeting.
Perfect. Okay.
So what we try to do is if there's a new initiative, a new position, a new program, we try to show that as a separate warrant article. So if you ask, what's the decision that's made in terms of what's a warrant article versus what's part of the supplemental budget? Supplemental budget is items that were considered for Springtown meeting, and but for the availability of money, deferred to this town meeting. The other things are new programs and new initiatives, and they stand alone as a separate warrant article. And we'll go through
So
those.
these are, in order to balance that budget, these 4, we pulled that off of his budget? Was that
Yeah.
budgeted? Okay.
We did.
Okay. John?
The opportunity is perfect here to talk about new programs, because I'm in a sort of a chicken-egg situation here with the Recreation Commission. The Economic Development Committee is sponsoring an article to establish a Recreation Commission, and the timing is such that if it's approved at town meeting, right, they'll be functioning over the winter time and spring and hopefully planning things for next year, including the town beach and stuff, but there is no money. And so one of the things I was trying to figure out, what's the best way to approach this is, do I ask for an initial seed money for this Recreation Commission of like $10,000 in the article itself? Do we put it in the supplemental? Because if the commission's voted down at town meeting, then there's no reason to fund it because it doesn't exist. But if it is approved, we have to give them a fighting chance with some seed money to start. So I don't know what's the best way to do this.
Go ahead, John.
Mike, I'm glad you said that, because this reminds me of what we did with historical, right? Mike Braniff and Ed always wanted a warrant article to do that, but I always wanted to have it in the budget, so that way we plan for it every year. So this reminds me of that. So I guess if we had it in the budget and this is what everybody wants to do, I would put it on, like on this as a recurring cost. But some seed, I don't know what it would be
Yeah,
next
but
year, but
We have to vote on the article first.
Yeah.
How do you,
I thought, didn't we do that already?
how do you put it in?
Oh, I see what you're saying now. I thought we did that.
So what we can do is
Create.
we can create a committee fund, and the committee fund can be under the Board of Selectmen, and we can put money into the committee fund, and that will accomplish what you'd actually have it as a budget item every year.
Okay.
Just establish a committee fund.
Okay.
And it'll be under the Board of Selectmen, and that way, you're right, you don't get stuck in a situation where you get a committee that's created, they get a charge, and then they don't have the resources to be able to do it.
Yeah, because it's pretty encompassing what the Recreation Commission is was gonna fall under them.
Mhm.
And definitely want them to have some money. So would it be wise to, with this commission fund, so to speak, would it be wise to ask for the money for $5,000
Yeah.
there? And if they're approved, then you designate it to them?
Yeah, I think that's the key, is the selectmen are the gatekeepers, so, the committee wants to spend $2,000 on an initiative, come in and have a conversation with the board approves it, and the money's available.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Quality of life issue, so, yeah.
Right.
I'm a big fan of those.
Well, because the other way, we'd have to put an article every single.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, just do it as a committee fund,
yep.
Right.
and we include it as a line item right in the
Once it
selectmen's
gets
budget.
going, you don't want to not have,
Well, what if some year something happens, right? And
Right.
something gets cut, programs get cut, never fun.
So does anybody have any questions on Appendix A? You all set with that, John? All set. Article 4, compensated absence trust.
Okay, so this is an amount that we set up as a warrant article, and the reason why it's done as a warrant article and not as a budget is if there's any balance that remains at the end of the fiscal year, the money carries forward. So compensated absence trust supplies that we always want to have money on hand. Then this money is on hand to fund any end-of-career retirement costs. So when an employee leaves service, the town is responsible for paying their vacation time, whatever they have on the books. It's a one-for-one buyback, so for every hour the person has, the town has an obligation under the law to pay them for that time. We also have a bylaw provision that says that when a person retires, we'll buy back a portion of their sick leave. So we'll buy back 50% of their sick leave to a maximum of 30 days. So there's a cost associated with those, and what I've done is kind of looked in the crystal ball and said who's going to be leaving and what's their salary and what do they have on the books for time. And so this is an effort to put that money aside, because what would happen in the absence of this is an employee leaves and let's say they've got 4 weeks vacation. It creates a hole in the budget. How can you hire a replacement when you don't have the money there to be able to pay that person? So this is kind of forward thinking in terms of what we anticipate for retirements. I warn you, there will be a significant number of retirements in this organization over the next couple years. And this is an attempt of kind of like the first wave, but there will be other waves coming up too that we need to be aware of. Questions on that?
Well, it's not really reoccurring. You can't, like, plan out the amounts, right?
No, and the employee always reserves the right.
Right.
They retire when they want to retire.
Right.
Some sooner, some
Is there
later.
anything in that account now? There's gotta be money.
There might be a small balance that we have, not major, but the goal was to make sure that it doesn't hurt departmental budgets, because we're such a small organization. If you're talking about a large community like a Worcester or whatever, it doesn't hurt the budget when someone retires. You just don't leave a position, you just leave a position vacant for however many. But here, we're so small that every position is important, and this really is a way to get there.
Now, are we gonna take this out of free cash?
Yeah, I think this is a free cash item, Michael.
Any questions on that? All right, let's go.
Article 5.
So I'm going to lump 5 and 7 together. So both 5 and 7 deal with unpaid bills of a prior year. And under state law, you need a town meeting vote to do it. And if it's a regularly scheduled town meeting, it needs to be a 4/5 vote. So these are things that we make up. When you hear that we need a 4/5 vote, it's something that the law requires us to do. So typically, it's not unusual. Money's come in, bills come in after the close of the fiscal year. We have $180 on one bill. We have a $1,998 bill on the other hand. So what would have happened is, at the end of the year, there would have been balances in those accounts because the bills hadn't been received. So basically, what we're doing is we're just seeking the authorization to pay it, and we'll pay it from free cash.
Free cash or
So it's a $180 bill from TNG
Right,
and Print Solutions for our annual town report,
correct.
$2,000. Okay.
So that would be 5 and 7.
Any questions on those? All right.
Article 6, I don't know if, John, if we need to go over Article 6, that's not really pertaining to the FAA, unless you want to touch on that.
I want to touch on it, since it's a public hearing, should probably at least say what it is.
So it's a nuisance bylaw, and it defines nuisances in the community, and it gives the town the legal right to take action if a property is deemed to be a nuisance by the Board of Selectmen. Board of Health already have that authority under the law, so it gives the Board of Selectmen an opportunity to determine that a property is a nuisance, gives us an opportunity to take corrective actions, and then file a lien against the property. And all of it is done through public hearings and notices and things like that.
John?
this is me speaking as a private citizen. The problem with nuisance laws is typically they're used as weapons in neighbor disputes. So I don't know if there's a way to put a loser pays, where anybody that brings a nuisance claim against somebody, if they lose, they are responsible for any legal fees and any other time and energies that a person has spent defending themselves. Too often it's used in neighbor versus neighbor
Oh, yeah.
disputes. It wastes the time of everybody. That's my biggest issue with nuisance laws.
Good point.
That's a real good point. Will council might recommend?
Council's in the process of making changes to the article, and there may very well be something that they do.
Right.
But I'll make sure they're aware of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Neighbor on neighbor crime is pretty common.
Right. So we can revisit that at
Yep.
the FAA if it changes into some sort of a fine or something like that. Any other questions on that? Article 8. All right. And this is, to move 5,000, increase our FDFAA budget to 20? Is that how you're gonna,
Yeah, it's one of those things that we didn't
No.
fully fund.
any questions on that one?
I didn't even know we had a budget.
Free
It's not
cash.
really budget,
It's an account.
it's an account.
What does it count to?
Here's the good news, in the past, when we didn't fully fund the veterans' budget, that's where it went to. This year, we fully funded the veterans' budget, so you'll decide where it goes, and if it doesn't go anywhere, it won't be spent.
That comes out of free cash too?
Free cash.
Article 9, stabilization fund from the, to create a new account for the solar when we start getting lease payments from leasing out the old dump or
Yeah,
recycling
so
center.
I kind of looked at the article, and I don't want to restrict it to the landfill. We have 3 solar projects in town where we bring revenue in, and I think the selectmen's commitment was they wanted to sign those agreements based upon some of the money going to the stabilization fund. So I'd like to change the article so that money goes toward, from those leases, from those payment in lieu of tax agreements goes toward this account. There's no dollar
That
amount.
require a 2/3 vote to pull it out
Correct.
and a 2/3 vote to
Put it in.
approve that article.
That way it's also, Mr. Chairman, it's split out so people can see, because one of the questions we always get is, how much money are we getting from these things? And so that way people will be able to see, this is what we're driving.
Right.
So who would be the one that would be responsible for changing the article?
That'd be me.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be done here.
That'd be me.
Do you have any anticipated amounts?
No.
Yeah, no.
No.
Where were we on that project?
Hmm?
Where are we as far as
Which one?
the one up at the dump?
I say the devil is in the detail, and I don't want to say much more than that.
Okay.
The lease agreement hasn't been signed.
Because I know we talked about a little bit in the past about some of the solar money being used to create a capital expenditure budget.
Yeah, it gets a little convoluted, so we have these payment in lieu of tax agreements, which bring money in outside of the tax revenue side of it. It's a great idea, because you can kind of track it. Department of Revenue says, no, you can't do that. You have to include it within the tax revenue stream, which makes it, you kind of loses its identity when it goes in there. And that's not because we want that to happen, it's because the state says that's how it has to happen.
So leasing is a whole different ballgame then?
It is. Whole different ballgame.
All right. Article 10. I'll have, Rich, you want to come up and explain this? No?
No.
Article 10?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Deja vu.
Hi, Rich.
So we borrowed 400,000 and 250,000 last year. We had the authorization at the spring town meeting. We borrowed the money, and they want interest on it. So you can't put the cart before the horse, so we had to wait until was voted in the affirmative to go through and borrow the money. Now we have to pay some interest. We can pay principal and interest or interest only. If we pay interest only, we can only do that legally twice, but I would recommend only wanting to do it once. So the scenarios would play out. You'd make a 1/5 pay down, a 1/4 pay down, or you'd have to make a 1/3 pay down. You'd have to pay the interest, obviously the issuance cost. I try to get them to overlap, so we're only paying a single issuance cost. So the minimum we need is the 13,303.33.
Is the interest only?
Is interest only, and then if we just made interest only, then we'd have to go through and do a 1/4 pay down for next year. So whatever the math is real quickly, 1/4 of 130. We'd want to get that paid.
Okay.
The discussion for at least a portion of this, not this year, but going forward, would be that the LED lights that we've changed things over, there would be some savings. So instead of a huge electric bill, if we kept the same amount budgeted, we'd pay less for electricity, use that unspent electrical bill portion, and pay your principal and interest out of that, or put it towards it. I couldn't speak to how much it's going to reduce things. We don't know. We haven't reached that point.
So that's including, that's the roof and.
There's $400,000 that keeps us cool and dry, and hopefully warm in the winter.
13 will come out of free cash then, right?
I prefer it come out of raise. I prefer we raise the money because it, as Rich indicated, it's a reoccurring expense. We're gonna face it again next fiscal year. So if raise money is available, we raise the amount versus transfer.
Okay.
Right, but
So
that,
we got sorry, John, go ahead if you want.
Good.
All right, so it's a one-time shot for the interest only, and then we got to divvy this up.
You could go once or twice. The way the law reads, you can pay it down in 1/5, 1/4, or 1/3. But once you hit that third year, you need to make that 1/3 pay down on the $130,000. So it's that much more.
Okay.
all right, and if we did the whole thing, we'd still have to make the interest payment, so that would be 143?
Oh, if you wanted to pay everything off?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions on that one? Dennis?
No.
No questions, okay. Don?
I might stay up here, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thought you might.
Well, there's another article, Article 11, $2,552, going to transfer to the Assistant Treasurer Collector Salary Account. Well, give you the floor then.
Yep, it's a work in progress. I'm proud to announce that the Assistant Treasurer Collector now bears the certified title. She went through, attended school, all of her continuing education credits, and more importantly, she passed the test.
Very good.
So she's certified, same as I am. And it's a good thing. There aren't too many assistants that are certified, but it bears rewarding.
Is this a increase in pay, or is this a?
Increase in pay,
So this isn't a one-time deal then?
correct.
So,
There was a bit of a bump in the road in that I had sought to have this at the last Personnel Board meeting. I will be speaking to them at the next meeting, which will be the same day Capital Improvement has their meeting. I did a short survey of all of the neighboring towns, and right now Lisa's on her 4th year. She's got a college degree. My office does a whole bunch of things, and she has her certification, and she's at the bottom of the grid. So I'm sort of selfish in my motivation in that I think we've got a good employee. I think she's got an excellent person training her. I just don't want her to become an employee of a neighboring town. because she feels she's being underpaid.
So again, Greg, this is gonna be a raise?
This would
Yeah,
be a
this would be,
raise.
Be
this would,
cash.
no, this would be a raise item because it's a reoccurring expense.
Okay, any other questions for Rich on that? Pretty much explained it pretty well. John, anything? Article 12, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, transfer from available funds, $1,941.41, $1,901.41 to the town clerk's salary account, and $2,653 to the treasurer's account. What's that all about?
There's two parts to this. We'll start at the very beginning. My salary is set at the town meeting. As much as the selectmen love me or selectmen hate me, they can't alter my salary. It needs to be done at a town meeting via town meeting vote. So as much as they might review the town administrator and said, here it is, we'll give you an extra $100 this year, they can do so right at one of their duly posted meetings. The town clerk and I are special in that we're the only two elected officials that make substantially more than the $500 that the selectmen make. So we need to get this on a warrant and hash out the details. Part of it would be an increase for that would align with the upcoming merit increases that would be part of this budget. Another portion of it would be last year, Article 6, the supplemental budget for the fiscal year was an increase for the last 40 days out of the year. So town hall employees got an increase for the second half of the year, because we weren't on the fall town meeting, we were on the spring town meeting. We got an increase for 40 days, and there was a flood.
So, just so I can understand, town clerk
And,
treasurers are not in the merit,
correct,
you're
we're
outside of that.
we're
right?
outside of that.
It could be, but they chose not to. They have to do like performance evaluation stuff, but they could participate. But this would probably be an easier way because of their elected status.
Okay. And I would assume this is a raise.
Yep, this is definitely a raise article.
Okay, all right. Any questions on that one?
Thank
Raise
you.
and appropriate, right?
Correct.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, Article 13, the library trustees, raise and appropriate $2,380 to the library custodial services account.
Yeah, so I can speak to this issue. The library has a contracted service that takes care of their library, and in speaking with the director, she had voiced her concerns that she didn't feel that it was enough, and she wanted the building maintenance crew here to kind of fill the gap. The building maintenance crew here not only maintains this building, but is also responsible for any parks and cemeteries in town, police, fire, highway, et cetera, and their time is already full. So in order to meet the need of the library, they would have to increase their custodial services, contract services by this amount of money, and I think that it's necessary. If she doesn't get it this year, then I'll ask her if she does it again in the spring for fiscal year 2020.
Okay. So this would become from free cash then, right?
It would,
Is this a one-time expense?
not really, because going forward, you need to kind of make sure that your building is maintained, so that the library's a beautiful building, but you can't maintain it on, 15 hours of cleaning schedule a week. And this provides her with the additional hours that she feels necessary.
Okay.
So I would say it'd be a raise item if we can do it.
Raise and appropriate.
Raise,
I
okay.
agree.
Article 14,
That's me.
$25,000 to the fire station building committee account.
We talked a little bit about this earlier. So as part of the settlement on the subcontractor bid, we received the sum of $25,000, which we are obligated to put back toward the fire station project. That lessens the amount that we requested for supplemental amount. It needs to be voted by town meeting. Department of Revenue says, great idea, vote it at town meeting and spend it. So we will go toward the project.
And that would obviously come from the free cash, then, right?
No, transfer.
Put in.
The transfer?
It's a transfer, so you don't have
Oh,
to do.
okay, yeah, sorry about that.
It has really no impact on the
Oh,
budget at
right,
all.
okay, so just move.
We actually have the check in hand and have deposited it.
Okay.
So it's a transfer.
Article 15 for the fire, did anybody have any questions on that, by the way? Article 15, Fire Department, 10,788 for the, this is for the air packs. We got a grant for that, too? Oh, the chief.
This is the match, yeah.
So this is the 5%, well, 5% match that FEMA and Department of Homeland Security requires. The total grant award amount was $226,000 and change, so that number there represents the 5% that the town's responsible for. Obviously, you're not gonna give $215,000 back, so you're gonna match
it's a
the
no-brainer there.
10,000.
Is that all the air packs we need?
Yep.
That supply the whole station?
33 packs
Very nice.
with a spare bottle each pack.
So
job with that grant.
10,788 for free cash is well worth it.
And it's replacing packs that were purchased in 1995.
Nice.
Think about that for a minute.
What year again, Dean?
1995. We did replace the bottles once, because they were beyond their shelf life, but actually they're coming up again within the next 5 to 6 years. But like I said, the packs were really old and they didn't meet any current NFPA standards, so.
Nice. Any questions on that? I don't think there's any questions on that one. Yeah, I'm assuming that's a free cash item.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think this article was passed over at the last town meeting, right?
It was.
The triennial.
So, yeah, we're,
certification.
we are required, as the Board of Assessors have in the article, to do a periodic revaluation of town property. The state approves any valuations that we come up with, and this is the first step in doing so, is to appropriate money to serve that need.
And we usually fund this at supplemental.
Yep, it's usually done right in the fall. They always put in the request in the spring to kind of get themselves in line for the fall, and it's typically funded through free cash.
Any questions on that one?
It's required.
Okay, Article 17, amend the bylaws. Do we need to bring it up if anybody has any questions?
So it changes the authority of the Board of Selectmen to settle any lawsuits or claims against the town. And in keeping with modern times, it gives the selectmen the authority to do that up to $20,000. The present value is $2,000, which in many instances, that's a couple of tires on a car that hits a pothole.
Is the 20,000 a requirement?
No, it's set by the town.
Set by the town, so that's
So,
not,
so someone could say $25,000, as long as it's approved by the town, that's the authority. And this is a Board of Selectmen article, so they're the ones, John can speak to it, they're the ones who requested this amount.
Yeah, I mean, none of them that we've had to deal with have been even, they're all more than this, but this for all the other stuff, without having to go through a lot of stuff, we can just,
so it's just a little easier to do it?
yep.
Okay.
So does this create a larger account for you guys?
Just gives them authority, I think, right?
It's just authority, not a.
Yeah, authority, no money,
Okay,
no
so,
money.
but where would this money come from if it was needed?
It can come from, if it can come from a departmental budget, or it can come from an insurance company, it can come from any sources.
I
From
just
the
want to make
FAA.
sure that it's not something that we
It can
have
come
to,
from the reserve fund if we're not
Yeah,
careful.
There you go.
well, I just want to make sure it's not something that we have to,
No,
No money
push
here.
for. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions other than that? No.
So Article 18 is right after that. It's not bold, so you might not see it. So go back to Article 17, and then a couple of paragraphs down. Article 18 establishes, changes the town's personnel policies and procedures. In summary, it defines the duties of the Personnel Board and says that they're to approve and recommend the classification and pay plan to the FAA and Board of Selectmen, and review and recommend employee benefit programs and conditions of employment, and then advise and review on personnel procedures and administrative practices. It establishes that the town administrator would be the personnel director, so if you flip to the next page, kind of codifies what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. The town administrator should be the person that deals with hiring decisions, termination, employee discipline, grievances and such. That's what your town administrator is paid for, and that person should have the expertise to be able to resolve those things without having to go to a board or committee.
Right.
It's not my article, by the way.
The FAA making a recommendation on any of this? Board of Selectmen, there's no, when would we address something that would be in here?
When we address something, probably when we go through the warrant here, but if you have concerns.
I thought this was a joint meeting with the FAA
It is,
and
it
the
is. The only one
Selectmen,
who showed up.
We only got
and
one
it's select man meeting.
If-
Okay,
Well, what are your concerns?
well, if we can't effectuate a change or, I mean, it looks like the transfer of power goes from the Personnel Board to the town administrator, but it addresses something that my office does, employee benefits, and it makes it Personnel Board shall, and then under B, review employee benefit programs, and then on the following page A, the town administrator, under 3, employee benefit and service program. So that impacts what I'm doing right now. In addition to, in between the two of them, letter F, the board shall recommend compensation for all presently compensated town positions, elected and appointed. That gives you a second swing at the same pitch. You're either elected in answer to the people, or you need to go through a personnel board review. And it seems to be
That's not.
Rich, where are you? Which number? Help me.
F.
Like F.
F.
So F is already there. So F is there, there'd be no change. I think F is already there.
Right, it is there, but,
It's there,
but aren't
already
you
in the
changing
board.
that authority over to the town administrator?
It's already in the bylaw.
No, because in this instance, it's talking about the personnel board being responsible.
Yeah, which is what they do now.
Talks about the board. The board shall recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think F is a change.
Okay.
I really
We
don't.
could look up and revisit, absolutely.
But your other point, Rich, about benefit programs?
Yeah, health insurance
Yeah.
So
goes,
review and recommend employee benefit programs with the, concurrently with treasurer collector, something like that? Is that what you wanted to say?
well, I'm taking this at face value, that the selectmen saw an opportunity to improve the operation.
Yeah, that's what this is.
Conversely, we've got things set up pretty well. I'm kind of proud to say that
Yeah.
a few neighboring towns have tried to get into the insurance program that we've put together.
I don't think,
That
It runs
seems to,
well.
oh, absolutely.
It runs well, Rich. No
Yeah,
objections.
I don't think it's anybody's arguing that.
right, and if that's a severe change to my office, I'd hate to, I would like to have been included in the original discussion, and I don't want to hear a thunderclap in May where, the treasurer's budget gets reduced by 20% because we've moved a responsibility out of there.
Can you guys talk about, like, how to word this to make it?
Yeah, it's got to, so we put notes in here. It's got to be reviewed by council, but that's actually not a legal issue. That's a correction that we can make.
Okay, I mean.
This wasn't intended.
At the end of the day,
I'm gonna say it.
No objection.
I'm proud to say that, you know, there's a very clear line of communication between the town administrator and my office, and, you know, reasonably, we've done rather well, and everything was codified because we have our health insurance policy, you know, so it's not like,
No,
All right.
yeah, no argument. Those 3 words that I always say, assume, positive intent, that applies here.
well, absolutely. Thank you.
But yeah, we'll work that out. Okay. 19.
19.
19, establishes and clarifies powers and duties of elected officers. So, the note is this may need to be done as a special legislative act based upon town council's review. That's my note, because I informed the selectmen that typically when you get involved to these form of government questions is what they're called, they often can be changed by 2 means, special legislative act or charter. This article could be modified to become a special legislative act. Charter is a bigger beast that needs to be dealt with, but this would allow these things to happen, and we'll wait on council's recommendation in terms of which avenue we pursue. If it's done in the form of a bylaw, then this wording is adequate. If it's done in the form of a special legislative act, then there'll need to be wording that says special legislative act.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, as an elected water and sewer commissioner, I notice in paragraph A that's called out, but then as you read further through in the sections that call out the duties and responsibilities of the individual boards, the Water and Sewer Commission isn't there. I'm just wondering if that's an oversight, or
I think so.
you've got town clerk, board of health,
Yeah, well,
assessors.
that's a good point, Scott.
Yep. This is another one of those modernized, because what we have in the current bylaws have almost nothing.
Sure.
like in there, so, yeah, I think it's an oversight, Scott.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Scott.
Wait, can I say those words again? Assume, positive intent.
Nope,
So we can,
nothing assumed there at all.
There you go.
Just
Perfect.
an oversight.
Yep. Good call. Thanks, Scott.
what are we up to? Article 20,
Yep.
20.
general bylaw.
The town administrator.
So this is another one like the last one. I didn't write this, but it does parallel what you see in other communities, either in the form of a charter or special legislation. So there's no new ground being broken here in terms of duties and responsibilities. But this is another one that may require special legislative act.
Was that Article 20?
Yeah.
20.
And in the last town I was in, they had a town charter, and it's pretty similar to what you see here. And again, typically that's something that goes, it's form of government, powers, duties, responsibilities. There's a different method of adopting that sometimes than just simply a bylaw.
Now, is that handled by state law right now, or do we have a bylaw that already establishes?
So, there's the state law that addresses home rule legislation, and it gives the option of creating a charter commission or charter commission, which is very stringent and very regulated, or in lieu of that, you can take certain provisions. Charter is all-encompassing, and you can take certain things out, like, for example, the town administrator position, and you can put it in the form of a special legislative act. And that's what this would do.
So we would have to get approval from the state if we pass this bylaw?
How would I say, I think so, but I want to depend upon the legal experts, council, to kind of review it and say to the selectmen, this is how it has to be done.
So this has to be done before the town meeting then?
Yeah. Yeah, so when we're done with this today, this goes off to council, and council then goes through it and makes changes and edits.
Article 21, Planning Board. Anybody here to talk about, anybody know anything with this one? John?
I'm not on the planning board, but my question on this was, wasn't the Ramshorn Road property defeated?
It was.
And according to my recollection, you cannot put something up after 2 years, for at least 2 years after a defeat for a zoning article?
So council, that's a good question. Council has said that if it's sponsored and receives a positive recommendation of the planning board, it can go on the warrant.
It will what?
It can go on the warrant if it's sponsored and recommended by the planning board. And so the planning board is the sponsor here, and they're recommending it be approved.
What about the 2-year statute that's
Not-
under the state?
Not when it comes to something that's homegrown through the planning board.
But all zoning articles, if they are denied, it's a state reg,
Yep.
you cannot reintroduce for 2 years.
I know, and council has reviewed this, and council's opinion is that that does not apply to articles that are created and sponsored by the planning board.
That's a first.
We had said that,
20 years experience here, it's the first time I've heard that. All right, thank you.
I was surprised myself, John.
So this is the same article that got presented back in August and lost at a special town meeting, and the planning board wishes to bring it back. And like any zoning matter, it will require a public hearing, which will be posted by the planning board prior to town meeting date. So if you wish to offer input specific to this article or any zoning amendment, I would encourage people to go to the planning board meeting.
And town council's already looked at this and said it was,
Yep.
Believe it or not, yeah.
okay.
Twenty-two.
22, the police department. This actually came up in front of capital improvement today. The police chief was not here. He's requesting a F-150. We have no information on, he didn't submit a bid sheet. He did write a little bit of a note, kind of outlining why he may need this, but we don't have any information, so I'm gonna get in touch with him this week sometime, and this will come back up in front of capital
What did
improvement.
the note say? I was curious.
Let's see if we got it.
Let's see who can find it first.
Oh, she's got it.
Oh, yeah,
And there's just various uses for F-150. It's not on the 5-year plan for the police department. We basically rotate one unit a year, predominantly SUVs now. What was the last one we bought, the Charger?
Just use an Explorer, I can tell those. Explorers can tell those.
Yeah, we didn't receive any information.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's, all right, I didn't see any of
It
that.
wasn't
I was curious.
presented on any
All
kind
right.
of a 5-year plan, so we didn't
Oh, I'm
we
sure
didn't
he'll-
anticipate.
So we deferred it to
We
the next
deferred
meeting.
for our next meeting.
All right, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll fill us in. But that would be free cash, right, if we did that.
Fire department, we've got the fire gear, 19,990. This was on the original
It was
Spring.
passed over in the
passed
spring.
over. Yep.
And this is the third year out of 4 years, because I was doing 10, 10, 10, 10, instead of hitting you with 40 all in one year. So next year will be my last request for the last 10 sets.
Any questions on this one?
Free cash.
This would ought to be out of free cash, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Right. And that's the last purchase, this one right there?
No, this is the 3 out of 4. Next
Third.
spring, I'll put them on again. It'll probably get bumped to the fall, and
That'll
that'll
be
be
it.
the last one.
Okay.
How do you know?
Happen every year.
Just,
And remember, I play ball, so.
do, I know. Yeah, 5 of a 4 year.
Year 5 of a 4-year plan.
We have a salary adjustment.
Yeah, this was as a result of another grant that came in the amount of $138,000. It was awarded around the same time the Bear Pack grant was for another full-time position, so it opened up a couple of officers' positions, and that's to cover the cost of the raises incurred because of the officers' position. It was $3,000 and change for one and $2,000 for the other one. But the grant was a 3-year grant for $138,000 for a full-time position. So again, a minimal amount to get a lot of money.
So that's just a one-time
Right, correct.
deed to bring us up to. Right. Any questions on that one?
Preference is always to raise,
Raise and
because it
appropriate.
involves salary.
All right, and then we have Article 25, the fire station. This came in front of capital improvement earlier tonight, and basically, we have a contingency of, what, 500 and, I gotta look at my
Yeah,
notes.
we started off with a contingency of $525,450.
Yeah.
And to date, for unforeseen conditions, we've spent $207,561.50. We still have some other outstanding items that need to be bid out and purchased, which will leave us with a total contingency of around $187,000, which is roughly 2.9% of the budget. With 5% of the project complete, we'd like to have closer to 8%, going into the remaining projects. So we're asking for an additional $225,000 to be added to the contingency line.
So basically, just to explain it to John, you probably know what's going on here, but out of the 5-something, we've got 187 left, basically.
Right.
And we haven't even really begun, so this is
And there's some
added
other
to that
stuff we
amount.
have to buy.
Right, so we don't want to get to the end of this and not have the money.
The ventilation system and what was the other thing?
Yeah, it's vehicle exhaust and the emergency alerting system.
Emergency alert, yeah.
Just for the two individuals that weren't at the early meeting, the costs were incurred as a result of, we had an issue with the electrician that backed out of his bid, which resulted in,
It was a net change with project fees of $127,000.
and then we found the dirty soil under the building, which there was no way to find it during the test borings. And I know there was like 13 test borings done, and there was also 4 or 5 pits dug. But the contaminated soil was under the existing building that they demolished, and it was encapsulated by the footing, which I said earlier was a blessing in disguise, because it kept it in that one area, so it didn't leach into the rest of the lot. So it actually ended up being a lot less money, because it was in one compact area, and they were able to remove it quite easily. So that saved us a lot of money. But again, it was unforeseen. There was no way to know that, because there was no way to get to it or do a test bore, because it was under the building. But as I stated earlier, they've taken multiple soil samples, and it's all been remediated, so it'll all be good from here. It's just, you need the 8% contingency in case something does happen along the way, so we don't have to stop the project, which could result in costing us 20 to 40% more on the project if something bad happened. The 225 is a minimal amount.
Mr. Chairman, did you guys cover the fact of why the project costs are now that much more? The bidder list and all that?
Yeah, we went through that entire memo that we went with the selectmen.
I just want everybody
And
to know
and
that
the other thing,
low bidder dropped out, and you gotta go with the next lowest bidder.
correct, in the second from the bottom, they couldn't commit because they already signed on to another project, so we had to go up to the next one after that, so
Yeah.
it resulted in a pretty significant increase.
And I've been saying publicly, and I say it again here, everything that we're asking for in this 225 is not from lack of oversight by any contractor, engineer, or town official. They are truly unforeseen conditions that have eaten significant amount of the contingency so early on in the project, and the 225 is simply there to provide us with the contingency necessary to complete the project. In theory, we might not spend that money. However, as the chief said, if the money's not there, and we run into an issue, we have to stop the project because we can't issue a payment requisition to the contractor.
Any questions?
And we're gonna borrow this, right? This isn't free.
I mean,
Yeah.
Just to update, because Don was here for Ann and Dennis. Basically, what they're asking is, there was $525,000 set aside as to take care of contingency costs. They've spent $207,561, which is, I think, 4 parts, right?
Right.
It's down to $127,000 for the electrical, $60,250 for the contaminated soil, another $4,741. I think that's for the foundation.
Foundation and unsuitables. In other words, soil that couldn't get
Soils
the
and-
compaction that it needed to support the building,
Right.
you know, like swampy material.
Right. So that, and added that to that would be another $15,482. So those take up $207,561. Plus, we had a vehicle exhaust recovery system of $80,000 and the emergency alert system of $50,000. So that eats up a good portion of that contingency, leaving us $187,888.5. So this is extremely important that we have that money available in case they run into any other contingencies.
One other thing I'd like to bring up that I forgot earlier too, that keep in mind this building it's serving a multi-purpose. It's gonna also be the town's emergency operations center as well during, like disasters and things of that nature. So it's being brought up to that code.
So, and if this is needed, it will be added to the current override, or the debt exclusion, excuse me.
Yeah, the
File
debt
state.
exclusion.
And it was, what, 20 cents?
Yes,
And if it's
small,
needed, it's much, I think it's under 20 cents per
Small.
thousand.
but we have to apply for the debt exclusion exemption.
Right. So this has to go through the DOR and stuff like that, so. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that would be raise and appropriate.
Borrow.
Borrow. All right, we're getting there. Okay, Article 26, my favorite article, stabilization.
So we try to put somewhere between 50 in a lean year and $100,000 toward our stabilization fund. The amount is to be determined, but that's what the goal is.
So we don't know yet.
Not yet, because we need to determine how much other sources are available.
And I think, if I can remember correctly, we had 220.
Yeah, and it would be a transfer from free cash, that much I do know.
Really nice if we can get that to somewhere around, at least
I
then.
wanna
you
get
can-
back up to where we were,
Yeah.
500,000, where we were a couple years ago.
It's true.
And I love that too, but if we can find a way of getting that to 300,000,
That's all the solar.
would be, would be really nice if we could do that. But, so we don't know on this one, what we're gonna have left?
No, we'll get you that number.
Okay. Article 27, on the planning board, adult use marijuana establishment bylaws. Read this, so I don't.
So this is the, most of the paper that's in your packet tonight, is this article. So zoning bylaw. So the town has and I would encourage people to go to the planning board hearing. The town has a moratorium on marijuana establishments until November 15th this year. So to prevent someone coming in when that moratorium expires, the town needs to have a method of regulating marijuana-related businesses, and this bylaw is sweeping. It has already been reviewed by council, so the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed. What we don't want to do is end up with the fact that we don't have any way of regulating these businesses. Given our geographic location, proximity of a college that's here, and the fact that we have other communities in the area that voted to ban establishments, we could end up being a magnet for these businesses. And
Also a border town.
we're also a border town.
Go ahead, John.
So, yeah, so this is like the best of, like from all the other towns that were doing the same thing. We figured we had to get that in, like, now.
So then I have a question, and I know this is kind of outside the scope of the FAA, but just a quick question for you. When we passed the agricultural bylaw that prevented the town from imposing any new regulations on
agricultural products, it was done, I thought, in anticipation of this coming. Is that gonna prevent any new bylaws? In other words, are you treating marijuana different than you're treating corn and tomatoes? That's,
I guess that's a good question.
right? Because that's what that bylaw did, and it specifically said that. And this FAA stood up and
So
said,
it's called high-value crop.
we said at the meeting that we didn't recommend that article simply because it was preventing the town from making those decisions of any future bylaws. Is that gonna be affected by this?
I think this trumps it, right?
And can we trump
How would I
that
say-
bylaw?
How would I say we shall, well, the other one was done in the form of a general bylaw, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right,
So this is a zoning bylaw, so there, we shall see.
okay.
We shall see.
John?
I think the marijuana is covered, but it was called an order of precedence. All right, so federal supersedes state, state supersedes town.
Yeah.
All right, because marijuana is a controlled substance, and there's the Cannabis Commission now in effect, and they have outlined what cities and towns are supposed to do. My understanding is that this supersedes
Yes.
any local bylaw
Yes.
that may already be on the books as an order of precedence, but probably double check with council.
Yeah, 'cause that was my big question when we brought that article up, was, is this gonna impair the town from making any rules? Because it said any agricultural product. So and it did mention federal, doesn't supersede federal, but it supersedes, follows state law. So, I don't know.
That was the argument when they.
Right.
petitioned it.
It would follow state law and prevent the town. I think what they were trying to do when they put that on was to prevent the towns from stopping the marijuana growers in the towns. So,
We can assume positive intent.
okay, positive intent, I love that word.
But anyone who does want to know more, I know the planners put a lot of effort into this,
Okay.
so please go to the hearing.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Twenty-eight,
28?
Just have to find it.
You gotta find it.
bottom of the page.
How the heck do you write this long of an app?
I know, this one's a book.
Where do you
Handed me
get
the
this
folder, I was like, wow.
Where does it come
I'm gonna be here
from?
all
Where does
day.
this come from? Amazing how
Other
big.
towns did all the work,
Other,
right?
other towns?
Other
exactly.
You telling me other towns are smarter than us? They did this before us? No way. No, I doubt it.
Which one are we looking for?
We're
Article
just
29?
being ready, right?
What are we, 28?
28.
Very down the bottom of the
I
page.
found it.
Lori
18
Marigold.
pages later.
So, we're gonna pull,
Oh, there's the.
we're gonna pull out the amount, as I mentioned before, for the Veterans Services Office, which has been put into this article, and have it put into the budget transfer article, which was Article number 3.
Right.
So, this number will drop down to the range of $12,000 to $13,000.
That's about right. That comes from,
Right?
But this is raised,
This is
so
raised.
so we're gonna change this down to about 13?
Yep,
this is raise and appropriate.
this is raised.
Raised.
We can do what we raise. And just FYI for the public who may be listening, the town can award merit increases to non-union employees not to exceed 2%. And that process is triggered as a result of a performance evaluation by the department head, review by the subcommittee established, including myself, a member of the selectmen, and a member of the personnel board, and then further, those recommendations to be approved by the personnel board and the board of selectmen. So, pretty extensive process, but what we do try to do is we try to reward employees for outstanding work, and I feel as though our merit plan works pretty well in comparison to most communities.
Yeah, I have to
13.
agree. I'm really glad we put this in place a few years ago.
Any questions on that one? No? Okay, the sewer department, this is the infiltration, or is this what is this one? Phase 1 of the infiltration. Scott talked about this.
Yeah, so I'll be a little briefer this time. I, infiltration and inflow, that's involving the sewer collection system in town. Basically, it's groundwater getting in through whatever means, and improper or illegal direction of water into the sewer system, basically downspouts, stormwater, getting in whatever way. In any case, DEP mandates that you minimize it. We just spent a chunk of money to have an initial study done around town and have determined 2 areas of town that have larger than acceptable I&I. Basically, this part of town and up around the courthouse in that area of town. So we've got 2 more phases of testing to determine, to narrow down even finer where the water is getting in. And then after that, we'll have to spend a significant amount of money, probably by bonds, borrowing, to fix it. So the next step, phase 1 of that, we'll do in the fall. We'll do actually in the spring, so we're looking for money now. And then in the spring, we'll be looking for the next phase, and each phase will lead to the next one. And basically, we'll spend this from retained earnings.
Okay.
So it's all been laid out by our engineers, Ty and Bond.
So we're gonna try to pass this several times?
It's a separate amount each time. I don't have the chart with me tonight, but we will be back over the next few
Phase 1.
Yeah, but
meetings.
it actually makes a lot of sense.
It does make great sense. The less water, the less clean groundwater that we send down to treat, the less costly it is in the treatment plant, and
Less money we have to pay to Webster, basically.
less we have to,
to Webster.
less likely our rates are going to go up with Webster. They haven't gone up in a number of years, but
Right.
if we don't corral this, it could go up. It also decreases the amount of work our pumps have to work. So it makes sense to do it. We're at that point where we're actually getting it done, starting to get it done. It's going to be a process that's going to take a number of years. We're just going to keep moving along.
What's the
as
overall
it
cost, you think, of this whole thing?
It was like
If you
$500,000.
add a few more digits to the amount we're asking for this time,
I think the study piece is probably pretty close to $200,000 to
it's
$250,000.
around 250,000 for all of the phases of the studying. And then, but the repair is what's going to cost a big chunk of change. That's probably going to be through borrowing, long-term borrowing. But that's I would say that's maybe 3 years down the road.
Yep.
Comes around the corner.
Thompson?
Okay, all right, Scott, any questions for Scott?
Yeah, Scott, this is gonna be a transfer, right?
This is from retained earnings.
Right, so this isn't gonna affect the
It's
budget?
not going to, it doesn't affect the budget, no, and we have, I know during the previous meeting, I
60.
said that we had somewhere around 350, we have about, just shy of 500, about 470,000.
466, 449.
So, but that was just certified last week, so we're in pretty decent shape to continue moving forward with improving the system, repairing and improving the system.
Article 30, Economic Development, establish an agricultural commission.
Yeah, for the sake of time, I'm here officially now as chairman of the Economic Development Committee. But to save time, maybe we could just cover 30 and 31 real quick, the Recreation Commission as well.
Sure.
I may sound like a broken record. You probably have heard me a dozen times promoting this. We're trying to really kind of build a unanimous consent throughout the town for both commissions. The Agricultural Commission, there's about 60, 70 towns in Massachusetts today that actually have agricultural commissions. The Mass Department of Agricultural Resources primarily interacts with the local agricultural commissions for different programs, trainings, grants, things along those lines. as part of our 5-year economic development plan. Agriculture is one of the important, legs on the table, so to speak, for Dudley moving forward. And so what better than to have a bunch of farmers on an agricultural commission, and those that have a vested interest in farming actually help guide the town and tell the town and the townspeople what they need, apply for grants, build that recognition of the agricultural opportunities inside Dudley. And again, it's not just corn and hay. I mean, it's everything from working with the Economic Development Committee as far as maybe bringing in biotech companies, those type of agricultural, maybe helping farmers transition from hay to grapes or vineyards and things along those lines. So this would be the expertise board. If anyone ever comes to the town and wants a tax break and says, I want to protect this land, or APR, or Chapter 68, whatever, it would go to this board first. They would actually review it and say, yeah, this is good, or it's not suitable for farming, and then provide some advice and consent, to the Board of Selectmen as far as future lands that may come up and need protection or things along those lines. So, does anybody have any questions on the Agricultural Commission?
So what you're saying is this commission will, if somebody applies for an APR for their property, it's got to come in front of the commission first?
It should.
As advisory, or is
advisory
it a requirement?
role, exactly. That way they can go to the Board of Selectmen and say, yeah, this is.
So it would be a requirement then? They would have to come in front of the board for
I think the way the wording is we're serving as facilitators for encouraging different things, and working for the preservation of prime agricultural lands, advising the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Conservation Commission, Board of Health. It is advisory.
Okay. So it's not a requirement then, or anything like that?
No,
was gonna say, 'cause
but the Board of Selectmen should say, send it to the Agricultural Commission. And get their expertise first.
Oh, I can see the arm twisting not to go in front of a committee like that.
No,
Open space people, want to preserve the space, put the stuff in APR, whatever. And
Well, that's one of the dilemmas the town has, is there's a bunch of lands that are protected now that aren't being farmed actively.
Right.
Were granted protections 20 years ago, but there's nothing happening.
Nothing
So why are they still getting a tax break?
Okay, exactly.
So the Agricultural Commission can, for those, and maybe it's because someone isn't physically able to farm the land,
Right.
but would like it farmed. So what our role in the Economic Development Committee would be on that case is to play matchmaker. So if this land is available for farming, and you have people that are willing to do the work and almost be farm managers, but they may not have the income or the assets to buy land, well, then let's match them up together so that they can actually work that land, get it back into production, and have a win-win for both
There's no sunset on the APR, right? Is there a sunset? I mean, 20 years, 25 years, whatever?
I couldn't tell you. I don't
When it
know.
gets sold or something, maybe. There's a trigger, I don't remember.
Yeah, there are.
It's not like, you can't, farm it for 25 and then you go back.
A commission like this would have been very helpful with our issue a year and a half, 2 years ago. To say, is it legitimate? Could it be used
Just
from?
thinking that.
So that's what that is. And the basic thing is, it looks like we have enough farmers. Paul Joseph has done a lot of work behind the scenes, and it looks like the commission will be filled rather quickly with farmers and those that are farm managers in other communities. But empower them, let them do their own thing, and let's see where it goes. So that's what that is. And then, any other questions on that one? I'll jump to the recreation one.
No, I'm all set.
All right, the Recreation Commission, we didn't call it a committee, because we want this as part of the bylaw. As part of the 5-year economic development plan, the theme of the town, right? Live here, work here, play here. And too often, we spend so much time and energy on the living and working that we forget to breathe and have a good time where we, right, sense of community. And so by having a commission and taking all of these disparate resources and assets that the town has and putting them under one authority, they could probably do pretty well with it. So nothing against the Board of Selectmen, but you're engaged with so many different parts of the town, and each board has their own thing. And history has kind of shown that when you focus in on something with a dedicated group of people, usually can become pretty successful doing something. And so by putting in the rail trails, I mean, Ken Buckowitz has been doing this as a one-man show since its creation. He needs help, right? To be able to do the hiking trails, any town-owned land. We have conservation land out there that had trails blazed years ago but just aren't being maintained. And so having a strong recreation commission. And I think the key here is, I believe we had, was it like 5 members, and we want the DPW superintendent on this commission as well as the town administrator. And that's because they need to coordinate. They need to know what's going on. But I think having a strong recreation commission can help us with town celebrations and just people having a, town beach, great example,
Quality of
right?
life issue, yeah, I'm all
Yeah,
for this.
quality of life issue. And so, once it is approved, and I'm fairly confident it will be approved, where the FAA, I want to put it on your radar screen, because down the road, there's going to be funding. And hopefully, they'll be able to self-fund down the road. I mean, there's been talk about some people that have possibly may want to apply to be on this commission about coming up with a resident permit system to use these things for a fee and a little sticker program. And so already the creativity's out there that people have. So again, empower them, let them run with it. So any questions on the Recreation Commission?
Awesome.
All right, thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, sir. Jumping forward.
32.
Article 32, Board of Selectmen, Cemetery Commission. Comment on this?
Veterans lots?
I don't have any comment about it.
Yeah, no, it's just
Is it a change to the bylaw, or
It's an addition.
addition.
are you adding the veterans lots to the?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions on that, Debbie?
Can we actually do this? I thought veteran cemeteries were federal.
We're doing it right now. We've already done our first. So we have an opportunity to set aside land in our own cemetery for the purposes of Dudley veterans and their dependents, so that's what this is intended to do.
Just for the residents of Dudley?
Cremation lots, yeah.
That way they don't have to travel to another cemetery.
So families want to remain in town, and we want to be able to help them do that, and that's what this is intended to do.
Interesting.
Any questions on it? Article 33, the Highway Department. This came in front of the Capital Committee meeting earlier. This truck, this heavy-duty dump truck, was approved. I believe it was in the spring. It was approved, but it was approved at 65.5. There's a little increase, obviously, because it's we're almost a year later. So we did approve that. Of 67.5 for heavy
This would
duty.
be
This is on their
borrow?
5-year plan.
How would we get this borrow?
Yeah. Well, if we can pay cash, we'll pay cash, obviously.
We don't
The
know how.
intent is to borrow as little as possible. And something like a vehicle makes me a little bit nervous, because we're not talking about a big truck that's gonna last 20 years like some of the big ones. This is it says heavy duty, but it's only a 1-ton.
This is Article 34. Any questions on that one?
Well,
So funding source to be determined.
TBD?
and I've been marking down, as we go through what comes out of free cash. This one would drop us below 200,000 if that was approved.
Probably more, right?
186,344.
One of the bigger numbers.
That would be the
So
total.
we don't know if we can even get this yet, so. we'll see
Well, if we're
what-
hoping to save some of the free cash money.
That'd be a good idea.
Article 34. We're gonna borrow for the purchase of, what do we got here? There's various size tires for the highway department trucks.
Free cash, probably.
Did we do that last year for those trucks? No.
No, I haven't seen a tire article in 4 years.
I haven't seen one in 7.
Okay. And that would be a free
Danny
cash.
might have, he might have got some out of some, just his budget, if he needed one, but.
Okay. They want to buy Article 35, they want to buy a 12-inch angle plow for the highway department and sell the 74 snow plow, the scrap. For that truck, if we went with Article 33 and bought the truck, isn't that the plow we need? Or is he replacing, he's not replacing anything? That 98, right?
I don't know if that's for that truck or not.
Might be for a larger truck.
Yeah, I'm guessing the 12-foot plow is probably a bigger,
It's for the big,
bigger
for a
piece of
loader.
truck. Yeah,
Because usually it's like $6,000 for.
yeah, it sounds like a big piece of equipment.
The loader might have the
12-footer.
No.
So that would be for the loader, you think that's for the loader? I don't
Or
know.
the bigger trucks.
Okay.
That's a big plow.
And we
But
don't
that
know.
would be a free cash item.
All right, buildings and grounds, they had
Is it Dennis's truck?
they had this on the, we had
Yeah, this
approved
one-
this, Bill, we had approved this at
This
one
one's been
time.
on the capital plan too
Yeah.
for a while.
So it's been,
And
been there
we've
for a while.
said no.
So it is approved, there is that is a
Perhaps.
new number. I think that's 1,000, it was 48.5 was the original approval. Not really, not for what they're looking for. Yeah, not for a one-ton dump.
He wants it down.
So we, capital improvement approved it to 49.5, upped it 1,000. So,
I think it's TBD funding source right now.
Yep.
so we don't know on that one. That's the same thing as like Article 33 then, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Article 37, that's still in limbo. That's an animal control truck. Jen came in front of us and talked about having, she needs a truck, talked about a used truck, looking for a used truck, so that's what they're gonna be doing this week, is seeing,
Oh, she would, yeah, she did, yeah, because
so.
think about all the requests we get for like dead animal removal, and she shouldn't have to put that in her car, her personal
So,
vehicle.
she's gonna come up with something for us. We don't know if, capital improvement has to approve anything, because if it's under 20,000, but,
Okay. Well, that'll be
so,
good.
we'll see her next week. Hopefully we'll know what that is.
TBD on that one too.
And Article 38 is the reoccurring historic preservation article, which they match, we get a $5,000 match on that still?
We did last year, I don't know.
Yeah, we've typically funded it in the fall.
Yep.
And I know that the progress that's being made is, if there wasn't someone there to kind of do this, it wouldn't get done. I think it's necessary. Is it a high priority? Probably not. But it's something that we've made a commitment to.
Yeah,
And with matching funds, it makes sense.
Yep, I push this every year, but like I've always told them, like this, I'd
Should
rather.
be on a budget,
I'd
but-
rather see this be in the budget every year, rather than, I think it's more symbolic, but, you know, just, I can't see anybody who doesn't support it, just. So where would we, is this just a free cash?
Your
now?
free-
Yeah, there's definitely a free cash item.
So I guess that's it.
Yep.
Is there any other miscellaneous?
All the free cash that you keep putting, does it add up to 300,000?
Oh, it's more than that.
It's more than that.
That's what I was
We
gonna
haven't got
say.
that far yet. I'm like, which one?
Okay.
So what'll happen is,
No, that's a good question.
Well, no, the total of
So
all,
your free cash is no longer free and you're in the hole.
true,
Well, I got down to 102. If you approve everything, that,
including the 140? You didn't include the 140, did you?
I just took off the ones we said that would be
13, right?
paid for.
Right?
He just did the interest, right, on that?
yeah, we have to do 13,
That
over
includes the,
33.
that includes the dump trucks and all the police trucks and,
But that doesn't include any of these other items, the truck from Jen and some of the other things that we,
all right.
said we might have to
30s.
finance.
Usually we have way, way more than, yeah, we just.
I don't know. We'll have to go through it and add it up. And we don't have a number for stabilization yet.
No, but I do owe you a priority list, and I haven't put that together yet.
So FAA will have to meet again before the town meeting. I don't want to do it, I don't want to meet at the town meeting to do the approvals again.
We're gonna have to have a
So-
special meeting with us as well.
We
for
are.
this. Maybe
We-
we do it at a special joint meeting.
Yeah, because we have to sign the warrant still.
We have still to sign the
Problem
warrant.
is Monday nights is my
No,
problem. I
we
can't-
might have to
I
do
know.
a separate,
We're gonna have, if you can schedule a separate FAA
Sometime.
and joint meeting,
we have, because it's gotta go to council first, right? So that way we're not, we can
we
just
gotta do it
insert
before the
numbers and
town
words
meeting.
and
So
stuff.
what we have for, open dates here?
It'll have to be like next week. It's right around the corner. Maybe later next week.
So the 29th is the meeting.
Right?
So either next week, capital improvement has a meeting at 6 o'clock on the 16th.
That's Tuesday.
So to clean up our recommendations for capital expenditures, so we'll know better from Greg what we,
Yep.
a little bit better. And then, before the meeting, the 23rd maybe?
We
Yeah.
have to post the agenda.
Next week, it has to be done next week.
Yeah, next
It
week.
has to, so the 16th?
Hey, you guys, the FAA can meet later than the Board of Selectmen, and the reason why I say that is the warrant that gets posted doesn't need to include any of your recommendations.
Right.
However, the selectmen, they sign the warrant, it needs to include all the legal wording. That's what goes to town council. So the recommendations, you could conceivably meet the week before town meeting and vote
Right.
your recommendations. Then we will print up a warrant that includes your recommendations and the dollar amounts and the source of funds, and that's what gets distributed at town
The
meeting.
motions.
So you're not under the same restrictions as the selectmen, sorry.
And so so you have to meet by when?
We have to meet next week, you guys can meet the week after if you want.
Right, because we need them.
It's just
to
the
be
wording, the
correct.
numbers and stuff
All right, so,
continue to get filled in, right?
Yeah, it's the legal stuff that needs to be done and posted.
And what we're including, I don't know if we'll pull anything out at all.
We don't post recommendations. The warrant doesn't get posted with recommendations.
No.
The warrant that gets distributed at town meeting
we'll have our
includes
recommendations in it.
Yeah,
So,
everyone seems to be,
with the 23rd of October, that's a Tuesday night, we can't do it next Tuesday because they're tied up, all the rooms are tied up.
Who else is here?
Think all the rooms are tied up?
Well,
Yeah.
Fred,
23rd?
Yeah.
Fred says 23rd.
The 23rd, we can probably meet here
Here.
at 6.
Fred's got a calendar.
He just had his calendar
He's
out,
great.
23,
He's got his
23rd
calendar.
here.
Can we make it, all of us, can we make it on the 23rd?
What's
Say
like
6
that?
o'clock for an FAA
Is
meeting?
Sports selectmen as well, or just?
No, just them, right?
Well, I mean, if you want to do
Wanna-
joint for,
I would have liked everybody to, but I think it would make more sense to do one with all of us with the more, when it's more baked, more cooked more.
so
No offense.
what about the 23rd?
Article.
What about the 23rd? Everything
day is
should be
that?
in by the 23rd, right?
like a chocolate chip
Fred, what
cookie.
day is the 23rd?
It's a Tuesday.
Sometimes not half-cooked is good.
I was firmly tongue in cheek.
23rd?
23rd?
I think that's good to allow.
6 o'clock?
I think we need a joint meeting for that.
6
just
o'clock?
So everybody's on the same page and,
Is that a joint or?
But you will have your meeting before that,
we have to do it to approve the warrant.
okay,
And then we'll have a joint meeting
Then
to
they'll
kind
come
of go
back
through
again.
everything and
okay.
everybody can say their piece and, right?
Perfect.
And then we'll be ready. That way we're not,
I don't want to rush at
for
the
the
end.
meeting, because something always comes out of left field. I think if we all get it hammered out, the department heads, like Chief Wayner, he, needs to give us information on the other one.
So on the 15th, you have a meeting for selectmen.
Right.
So you guys will sign a
warrant.
warrant on the 15th.
Yep.
Capital
Well,
improvement, we'll meet on
We
the,
won't do it on the 15th. We have to have a special
Council.
meeting sometime that week.
Council needs, gonna
Okay.
need
so,
one.
so capital improvement meets on the 16th to approve whatever
Like the 17th and 18th,
balance we have, and then we'll meet on
Yeah,
the,
you have to.
we'll meet
Sully
on the
said that,
23rd.
posted by the 19th.
What did Sully say? What there was?
They, CIP.
Tuesday.
Couple of
Tuesday
people.
the
Both of them are
23rd.
Tuesdays, so the next two Tuesdays.
But we don't have to come next Tuesday, they do.
Regular meeting on 2:15.
No, we do. Oh, not you. You're not on capital improvement. So,
And what time is that one?
Yeah, that Tuesday and Wednesday night next one.
6 o'clock for both of them.
No later than that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I want to go to.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right? So you can make it.
Tuesday would be the
16th
16th or the
And-
17th.
I'll try to get
Thursday works well for.
some information out to everybody about what's left.
That's
that you?
But that's not gonna be a good, that's not gonna be a good day for me.
I'll leave the kids at home.
These were
Tell you
the
something,
articles
no.
for the capital improvement.
No?
There was 8 of them.
That's
We
Wednesday.
can push council to do it.
Some of them
sooner.
we went over. The
You know what
the
happens
police
is
car
we get
that's on
these
this
huge
warrant,
bylaws.
we haven't discussed yet.
If it wasn't for that, I'd say we could do it on the 15th.
So,
We have these
I didn't
huge
see that
bylaw
on.
changes.
I tell you the truth, I'm so
Submitted.
Maybe just
confused.
see what
Yeah,
we
it's
do
gonna
about-
take a,
Yeah, but
it'll
big
take
meetings,
a
yeah,
few,
that was one thing we asked
few
them to
meetings
do.
before you kinda get
Turn
settled in.
around.
Is there anything else? So, I'm
Public
gonna-
hearing closed?
We gotta close the hearing.
yeah, so I'm gonna. It's,
8:42?
8:42, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Okay.
8:42. Is there anything else you guys need to discuss? We've already got the date. John, anything?
No, I'm good,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Yep, I move to adjourn.
All right,
Need a second.
Second.
second, all right.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right.
Hey, thank you, guys.